Hello everyone and welcome to episode number 11 of our Findhorn Barrow. We've got Alex right here, co-host. I'm Callum Bell, and today we're joined by two very special guests, Yann Tiersen and Émilie Tiersen, who's going to join us soon, hopefully.
Yeah.
Yann and Émilie QUINQUIS performed a very special concert tonight at Universal Hall, and I don't know about you, Alex, but I'm still on a high from that concert. So you've been sailing around the Faroe Islands, Shetland, and now you're here in Scotland, and you and six of you in total, you're going to different places with Celtic roots, Celtic heritage. How's the tour been for you so far?
It's been really good, and lots of surprises. Sometimes we just for instance, we did a gig in Faroe Islands in the Shetland, and it's just quite good because it's a small community. So we play in the sport room, and everybody grab a beer, and that was great.
Can I just give you a less creaky chair, because every time you talk?
Oh yeah. We've been working with Jens and Oliver, Thomsen, Oliver Jacobsen for 15 years. We met in Rennes in 2009, and it's just there is a festival every summer in the Faroe Islands called the G Festival, and we always planned to play there, but that was it's a bit difficult to go there. And strangely, it's easier sailing there, even if it takes time. Then we were able to play there, so it was good.
And it's really special to see you here in Universal Hall, because we come here every week, and it's like a rural place and everything. And I was talking to someone there, we've been listening to your music for very many years. To see you here is quite a surreal experience. Why did you choose Findhorn to be a part of the tour?
Because we...
Oh, Emily's joining us.
Yes!
Hi, Émilie.
Hey.
Because we were looking for this kind of places. We start the tour actually in April. We have a kind of a test tour in Devon, and we play in the Schumacher College. I don't know if you know the...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Lyra studied there.
Ah!
Who put on the concert. And a lot of the places that you have chosen have Celtic influences, just like Brittany. How has Celtic music and traditional culture influenced both of your music throughout your career, would you say? What has been the influence?
I think for my part, it's really more the Britain tradition of the guers, which has influenced me, but without me knowing it, kind of. And I've discovered that way after, because people were always asking, "Why are you singing so sad songs?" And then suddenly I realized it was just because I was Briton, and it was just part of my culture. So.
Me, it is. I think minority languages is something really, really important, and that we have the chance now to have global languages that we can understand each other. We can speak English or Spanish, Arab, whatever, and that's wonderful. But we also have the language of the nature, and I think ancient language as the Celtic languages or other fairies, or all they're linked to places, they're linked to an ecosystem, and they're kind of the manual of the land. And if you go somewhere and you have all this key kind of tips and everything to understand, and it's obvious sailing actually, because all the the marks and the rocks, they're all like rooted and it's all like Gaelic name or like
because they have been identified way before Google and so it was identified with people that were actually talking these languages. So and they have kept their names and they mean a lot about what's going on in this area. If you can go fishing here, or if you shouldn't go there because there's too much current, or it's always a key to understand the landscape and the sailing. And
there is a good example of that. I mean, it's not sailing, but in Australia, in Aborigines like language, and there is a word. I don't remember the word, but to describe the crop, a certain crop. That's also say when you have to plant it and the bug that can destroy it, and it's just one word, and it's
So it's key to survival and key to a good life in a lot of places.
And to be in harmony with them.
And so on your tour, you're sailing around, you're connecting to like smaller, more intimate venues, and you're not having as much of a carbon footprint in as many ways. Do you have some hope that the music industry can move towards models like this? What's been your like impressions from this tour so far?
I think I hope, like the hope is that this could happen, of course, but it's not only about the music industry. It's also about the audience and people, how they can react or just understand that sometimes things can't happen if you just follow the rules, like the wind. Like here, we've been on the verge not to be able to make it because there was absolutely no wind. And then so it's just like it's also about making the audience understand that it's a moment that we share, and it's we need to think that this is going to happen only once, and this happens because everything has been aligned, and so it works. But like for instance, if we were going to tour in Japan, of course we couldn't do that every year, so we would like it's both, it comes from both sides. It's really like how we can rebuild the relationship between the musicians and the audience, and make and give away the industry in the music world. The music industry shouldn't be anymore. It's just music.
Just music.
Industry.
Just the art.
We just like we live in a small island in Brittany, and during COVID we didn't move. I spent like 1.5 years without like leaving the island, and I just left to go to the dentist. I was working a lot, and so after that I was really eager to go back on tour, and we started with a US tour, and the traditional old-fashioned way, so with a bus and going from cities to cities, and it felt terribly wrong. And it was like just like going backwards without meeting people, without like I don't know, felt wrong. And I and also this kind of tour, that's the weird thing, and I think it's kind of everywhere. It's not just in music. It's just like it's like in agriculture, actually, intensive agriculture. It's like you do big things, so you need more money, and then it's just to like to pay for the bus, and that's completely stupid. And at the end, there is no point of that. Like, so just sailing, we just have our home with us, so then we can sometimes do gigs where we paid, and sometimes playing for free. And our job or what we want to do is just sharing music with people. It's not earning money. That's not the purpose of it. So then it makes sense, and it makes everything easy. and then the result is kind of like not the same, because we share. And also I think it's even like this centralization and going from cities to cities, that's also something that I always think a bit weird, because cities are a bit artificial anyway.
Yeah.
So there is good things in cities, but that's the same, why cities? Because of economy, because of, money, capitalism and everything. I mean, then everything is in the same place, and I don't know, I think it's so good to play in small places and small villages or islands.
And when I hear like Kerber, for instance, I hear like the waves, I hear the rain, I hear the rocks, the landscape. I feel like I do anyway. So to hear that in a place like this in Findhorn, where all of that surrounds us, it feels better than it would maybe like in Glasgow, my hometown, to hear it in some way.
Yeah, I don't know. I love cities as well.
Yeah, I love cities. I mean, I live in Glasgow, but like just like walking around the bay and the beach and everything, then coming and seeing you here after you've got off in a sailboat, it's like, whoa.
Yeah. But yeah.
Yeah, I think Yann's music it can be really, really organic sometimes. And I mean, always. It's always really organic, and that's why it reached so many people's hearts. It's so linked, I think, to the nature.
I don't know. Yeah.
Do you have plans to sail to America or anywhere further?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the only thing is that once we are there, we can't really come back that soon. We should keep going. So it's a bit of a thing to organize.
Is that because of the winds or?
No,
it's just because once you're that far, you can go down and then go around and come back. So we've got a 6-year-old little boy, so it's kind of right moment for him to be away from school and to be on a boat. So we'll need at some point to figure out how to make all of these things work.
That's actually a really good thing. It's like, like music is like, or playing music is kind of way of living. And when you tour in old-fashioned way, and it's not, you just go on the tour, you just either a plane or a bus or whatever. But if you do it by sailing, it takes so much time that then it's a way of life, because you just like it needs to be your everyday life. So it changes everything, because it's not a bubble. It's just like,
it's your whole life that you need to reshape around that.
So yes, we'd like to go back to the US, but then we have to cross the Atlantic, and so that's
we need to feel comfortable also with the skills that we have. You are trying to have.
Did you have a background in sailing when you grew up as a child, or was this something you learned recently? Or?
No, recently. Yeah.
We are both born in Brest, so we are both. We have the harbor in our.
I'm living on the ocean we are living on the ocean for 15 years now, so full time. So yeah, sure, but yeah.
Did you both meet there?
On oceans?
How did you both meet?
In
Brittany?
Yeah.
We had common friends in Brittany, and so we met. But as I said, we were born in the same city, so we always met each other anyway. So it was just at some point we need to.
Yeah.
And was the initial connection through music?
No.
Because your music goes so well together.
No, it was not, actually.
So the music came later.
Yeah.
Just like I was playing music, Yann was playing music, obviously, but it was like away from that.
Can you talk more about your relationship with the Breton language? I don't know, like how comfortable you feel talking about the politics of France and the language and.
We had a chat about that. Breton language has been pressured the same way Welsh, for instance, has been, And so people in Brittany used to speak Breton language until the 60s. And so at some point the government has decided that it would be hard to control Breton people, maybe, if they were speaking a language they didn't understand. So they tried to remove the language from their lives. And so, for instance, my grandmother was speaking in Breton language, and my mother was raised in Breton language until she was 6. And when she arrived at school, she was 6 years old, it was forbidden for her to speak in Breton language, and she was wearing a clock, or a wooden clock around the neck if she were caught speaking in Breton language. It was written on the walls. It was written forbidden to speak Breton and to spit. It was that kind of spirit. And so I haven't been raised in Breton language, and neither did Yann. And my grandmother had Alzheimer's, so she just forgot the short-term memory, step by step, and then she went back to her roots. So she went back to Breton language, and she wasn't able to speak in French anymore before she died. And when she died, that's really the moment when I realized that I really need to speak Breton language, because I wasn't even able to say a proper goodbye to her. So it's a moment when I decided to do that. And there was that 6 months course. So I told Yann, okay, I want to do that 6 months course, like intensive Breton language. And he said, okay, I'm going to do it with you. And so we've had a little boy a year after that. And we decided to raise him in Breton language, so that would be his mother tongue.
Yeah, and it's crazy as well, because we realized that we were speaking French
in a Breton way.
Yeah, so we were translating Breton language without knowing that kind of. So it was like rediscovering.
The way sentences were built in our language were actually based on a Breton sentence translated in French. But we didn't even know that. It was just we discovered step by step the influence of Breton language in our lives.
I get that a lot in Scotland as well. Like a lot of like slang words that we have, and even a lot of words that I didn't know weren't in the rest of English turn out to be like Gaelic words later on.
Yeah.
I have a question to ask you about a famous Scottish person. So you've done a couple of collaborations with Elizabeth Fraser.
Yeah.
And I heard in one of your interviews that you might have like a bigger collaborative project together in the works. I just wanted to know, is there anything you can tell us about that?
No, it's just like I'd like to. And I think she's amazing. So I love to do something more.
And have either of you got
bigger?
Have either of you got any other collaborations coming up that you can talk about?
I'm collaborating at the moment with Kerry Safana, who is a singer from Wales, which does harp and singing in Welsh. So that's from my side at the moment.
So it'll be like the harp mixed in with the electronic?
The Welsh mixed with the Breton and maybe the harp.
Nice.
Yeah. I'll leave that to her if she wants to.
Me, I don't know.
You're sailing. You're collaborating with sailors.
No, I just like,
see what happens.
Yeah, exactly.
He actually did a very nice collaboration also with another Scottish guy.
Aidan.
Yeah.
Aidan Moffat.
Oh, Aidan Moffat from Arab Strap.
Yeah.
Nice. Has that been released?
Yeah.
Oh, I need to check that.
Yeah, it's called Meteorites.
Yeah.
I have like a weird connection with Aidan Moffat because I've met him 3 times. every time I've met him have been in the toilets of the Oranmore, a concert venue in Glasgow. And I swear, like, it's just at like random concerts, like we met at a full concert, at like a residence concert, and it's always in the toilet. And I think I've been like drunk sometimes and be like, "Hi, Aidan," and he's really cool about it. He's like, "Hi."
Amazing. That's great. Yeah, they're great. I
Another
like the Michael Middleton as well. It was very good. It's really funny.
Another collaboration that you've done in the past was the song Plu Diva with Jane Birkin, and sadly she passed away recently.
Yeah.
Did you have like a connection with her? Like, how did that collaboration come up?
At that time, yes, we just kind of met, and we had common friends, like a singer from Brittany, and but I since like that, didn't have any news for like, I don't know, 15 years. Oh, yeah. So we
But
were
she had a
really
house
cool.
just in front of us, kind of, just
Kind
like
of,
up there.
yes.
Like across the water?
Yeah.
And you've experimented, well, I guess in your music as well, like a lot of times it sounds like you experiment with like unconventional sounds and like textures in your music. Has there been like any particular inspirations for that? And I know that in some of your songs, like you've used like typewriters, for instance, or like I heard in one interview that scratching like the chair.
Oh, yeah.
To get some different sounds, like has Scott Walker been an inspiration because he does that kind of thing, or like has there been anyone that's inspired you in that way, or is it like second nature for you?
No, it's just like because I started like music with the first time I really did my own music, I had bands and I was playing guitar, but the first time I really did my kind of own music, it was through sampling. And I was really into industrial music, or Eichhausen, Neuenbauten, or and so I started sampling stuff, and I think I just after a while I just put a mic and record some sounds without the sampler, and I'm sampling again. So I think it's more, I've been raised with electronic music more. Yeah.
And I know that you work with, I can't remember his second name, is it Gary? So I know that guy got like a Depeche Mode and some other...
Jones.
Yeah, Gareth Jones, and he got like Depeche Mode and some other bands around that time, like into sampling at that time. So it was like quite pioneering at the time. Do you think... like, will you have more future projects with him, and like, will you do any sampling work with that? Do you think?
Yeah. We are working on a new album right now, and he's really into experimenting stuff. So we'll definitely go into a bit deeper into sampling this time, I think. Yeah.
And like, what kind of samples do you think could be included?
I think we are like Gareth and I. We are a bit like. Kids when we are together, so I think we are just going to check whatever is around like this and it can just be that. There is no much concept around it. It's just like spontaneous.
Were you?
Well, I was sort of almost picturing like filming, like recording the sounds of the sheep and the natural sort of environment. The sound of the boat, the waves, all sorts of
sailing sounds as well. Yeah. And where's next on your tour?
Edinburgh. Yeah.
Liquid Rooms.
Yes.
What did you say?
Liquid Rooms. I think that's the name of the
yeah, that's it. Yeah.
On the 8th of August. Is it?
Yeah.
What time? We can plug it here. It's not a question.
I don't know.
Let's say 8.
8, probably 8. Let's turn up at 8 with the music.
8-ish.
And from your time like walking around here, Findhorn area, what's your impression so far? And also from the audience, of course.
It's too short. It's beautiful, and
Yeah, I really enjoyed the seagulls during our gigs.
Yeah, you can hear them from the sky.
We had the same moment
Yeah.
of like end of track with the seagulls. So
I think the room is really special.
Yeah.
Actually,
yeah,
Oh, the Universal Hall room.
yeah.
and we really like Scottish culture,
Mm.
and that's not because you're Scottish. So
You always like
yeah.
Scottish culture.
it's really it's such a nice
Yeah,
culture, and
it's
I think it's really close to Britain culture actually, and yeah. So well done, guys.
Yeah. Oh, one of my best friends, Guillaume, I was telling you earlier, one of my best friends, Guillaume, he's from Brittany. And when we were like driving around there, seeing the sights, I was very surprised as to like how much of even the natural scenery and the weather and everything looked similar.
Yeah.
A lot of like the Celtic artwork, and
Yeah.
then around here in the Highlands especially, there's lots of like fairy artworks.
Yeah.
And then I've seen a lot of that in Brittany as well.
Yeah, that's funny that we spend so much time sailing to arrive in the same.
Yeah, the same scenery. Yeah,
Yeah,
you're
it's
trying to
like,
get
oh,
away in that
back
trip.
home.
That was really fun.
Yeah.
Well, thanks very much. This has been our Findhorn Barrow, episode number 11. Has anyone got anything else they'd like to bring in before the end?
Have you got any questions about the Findhorn or anything?
Oh,
to
yeah,
ask,
yeah.
or-
Can you introduce yourselves then? Because you didn't.
So my name is Callum Bell. I used to work for Universal Hall for 1 year, and I'm an aspiring screenwriter, but I find myself doing random things like camera and tech and sound and interviews, and I'm very happy to be here.
And you?
My name's Alex Wright. I've worked for the last few years in the Findhorn Foundation, and also I've lived in this not in quite in the community, but I've been part of the community living in the nearby town of Forest for like the last 9 years or something like that. So I've had a longer connection, to the place.
So can you explain to us a tiny bit what is Findhorn Eco Village?
It's a big question.
And foundation, no, but first Eco Village and then foundation.
Yeah, how do I...
And interviewer.
No, okay.
Do you want me to answer or do you want to answer? Or...
I do have an answer.
Well, I'll hear your answer.
Okay, so I would say that Findhorn Eco Village sort of emerged in the mid-1950s very slowly, and it was a family in a caravan, and this family, they used to run hotels and restaurants and different things, but they found themselves with little to no money at one point, so they were living here in this caravan park, and then they started growing things there, and then they were doing this with like meditation and inner listening. They'd had extensive spiritual practice, and like Peter Caddy, he'd been to Tibet like through the army for a long time, and things happened there. And this was the mid-1950s, but then it went into the 1960s, and then the hippie movement happened. And then what they were doing was ahead of the time in a way, because suddenly all these communities started forming like around the world, and there was like a big desire for that way of life in the 60s around the world. So a lot of young people started to come here. So you had like this more like maybe middle class, conservative, older, spiritual contingent in UK society who were here. And then you had like the younger hippies coming from like around Europe, around the world. And then this weird mishmash all worked together organically over time. And then it's came to be like what you see around you today, with like these quite built up like houses, but trying to live in an alternative way. And then the Findhorn Foundation is the charity that's sort of like sprung up around that. But there's 30, at least 35 different like companies and social enterprises around this eco village. So Findhorn Foundation were probably like the biggest and most historical one. But there's lots of other ones as well, and things have sort of like branched off as the place has gotten bigger. So the responsibilities of the different organisations have changed over time. And Findhorn Foundation has been like the main charity here for like spiritual education. But sadly, only this week they've announced that like 90% of the staff force is being made redundant.
Well, let me just
and Alex can talk better about that.
90%. They propose to make 90% of the workforce redundant because the finances are so bad. So yeah, I'm just saying proposed.
Yeah.
At this stage, yeah. That more or less sums it up. I mean, the eco village came out of the spiritual community that in the 60s and 70s there was a lot of spiritual communities and movements happening, and then the eco village really emerged in the 1980s when they started building like the whiskey barrel houses. This idea of building things out of recycled materials. We have the living machine, which is like a sort of sewage treatment plant that uses plants to treat the sewage. The wind turbines, this was one of the first places where they had like wind power generation, super insulated housing, things like that.
And what brought you here then?
And what brought me here, I first came on a program at the Findhorn Foundation, and then I just fell in love with like the way people are. They ask you how you're feeling, and they actually want to know how you feel, rather than just being like, fine, like whatever. Like, and also people had very deep conversations. They would I was just like it just satisfied something in me, like that people actually care and they actually want to know, and they're inquiring about what life is about, and trying to build like a world that is better as well, rather than it all just being about in a transaction kind of relationship. So, and then also there's the environment as well. As we've got the sea, we've got huge woodland areas in this part of Scotland. The mountains, it's just very beautiful as well. So I've kind of stayed for that as well. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And previously we had a chat about language with both of you, and I will try to stick to the Scottish part, as we are going to meet some Welsh people, I hope, in the future. So you mentioned something about at least the Scottish accent. Do you have like more like wider things to say about either the Scottish accent, or the Gaelic, and the influence of Gaelic in the Scottish way of talking, or could you tell me more about that?
So I guess like the place of Gaelic in Scottish culture nowadays, so only 80,000 of like the 5 million, 6 million people here speak Gaelic these days. But there has been like a revival, so there's like a lot of schools and nursery schools coming up, and Gaelic's appearing a lot more like in road signs and like public announcements and elevators, that sort of thing. But even though a lot of us, including myself, aren't fluent in Gaelic and don't know Gaelic, when you look around all over the country, a lot of the place names and even like some odd words that we use in our everyday language are Gaelic, but it's like we're disconnected from that. So the place name might be named like, I don't know, like Trees in the Hill, for instance, but we don't know it's called that. It's called like, this will be wrong, but maybe it's called like Kilwinning or Auchentoshan or something like that. But we don't know what the place is actually describing. So for me, I think that sort of like implies a bit of like a disconnect with the environment, as you were saying earlier, and like the questions we were asking you, how it can connect you to the environment. But like over time, this disconnect has been very much like a political thing, because there has been like from like certain forces in these islands, there has been like a concentrated effort for like Gaelic not to be the language and not to be spoken. And, you know, like in the 17 and 1800s, there was the Highland clearances. So like a lot of my ancestors come from the island Isla, and a lot of them on that island, for instance, sheep became more valuable than people. So the landowners there who were not from there pushed the people out, and then they get disconnected from their language over time with that.
And I found it interesting what you what you said about the fact that the school would make you, like nowadays, make you polish somehow the way you talk so that you could get a job.
Really?
Yeah, so I've seen this a lot growing up. So it's still a common thing in Glasgow, I would say. I guess like I come from like quite a working class background in many ways. Like a lot of my schools were more working class, and like a lot of the people I grew up with and around me and even in my own family have like much broader, thicker Glaswegian accents and dialect than I do. And I mean, I got it sometimes with certain things when I was growing up, but I've seen people who were like hounded consistently by teachers with this. If they talked a certain way or said things a certain way or even like wrote things in a certain way, like in a story or in an essay, they got in trouble. So not even like, please write a different way. It's like, no, that's wrong. You're wrong with what you're writing. You're wrong with what you're saying. And even things like, you'll never get a job if you're talking like that. These kind of messages from certain teachers, not all teachers. But that's still very much a thing, like in present day, I would say. And there is like, sadly, a bit of a double-edged sword to it because it's like there's some kind of conditioning here. So the conditioning is that there is like a standard English or a standardized English, but that's not true because like it's so like various around these islands, like how English is developed and how other languages have influenced it. But it's like if you're not speaking to the way like a certain social class in London speaks, which is just one part of this island, then what you're saying is like wrong. It's sad. But like it's beautiful to have like literature and music and art that are in these other languages, and to, instead of just understanding the London English, why can't we try and understand different versions of English, like when it comes to English or any other language?
And do you think that the musicality of Gaelic built the way you speak English?
So in many ways, yes. So I don't speak Gaelic, but it definitely has a big influence in the way I speak. So I come from Glasgow. So the thing about, in Scotland, there's maybe two capitals, let's say. The official capital is Edinburgh. Edinburgh has less people. It's a beautiful city and it is where the Parliament is. But I would say that's the capital of the Scots people, historically. And then Glasgow is more like the capital of the Celtic people. And it's even got like a Celtic name, like Glastrue, Dear Green Place. And the reason why a lot of that's happened, because it's the western part. So like Gaelic was never like the dominant language across Scotland, but it was like the south and the east spoke Scots largely. But then the west mainly spoke Gaelic, and the Highlands mainly spoke Gaelic, and the islands mainly spoke Gaelic, and then the people in Ireland mainly spoke Gaelic. And then most people, including myself in Glasgow, as well as like island heritage, we've got Irish heritage as well. Most people in Glasgow have connection to Ireland.
And glass in Britain language means green.
Yeah,
which is funny.
And I'll say I'm English, so I grew up and I went to school in England, but it's interesting that I didn't learn a lot of the stuff that happened in Scotland, the Highland clearances, or it's not in our textbooks or wasn't in my school textbook. And yet I learn about like Australia or like America or something, but not about what happened in Scotland. So I've only just in the last 10 years learned about like the Culloden battle and like the Highland clearances and all these things. It's like we edit the history.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Well, another really sad thing is it wasn't in my textbooks either.
Not in your what was specifically like the Highland clearances wasn't it?
Yeah.
They just
a
edit
lot
that
of
out.
So this is like another really sad thing. Is that so I look in Glasgow and I can only really speak from like a Glaswegian perspective, but Glasgow's got like some of the highest drug death rates in Europe. It's got some of the highest like knife crime rates in Europe. It's got like a lot of problems with alcoholism. There was this really beautiful man called the Birdman of Pollock, and he grew up in like this kind of environment in Glasgow, a very rough environment. He went over to America and he connected with Native American people. And when they were over there, I mean, it sounds strange for most people to hear because it's not a comparison we make a lot, but they found comparisons with each other because the Native American people had been like uprooted from their land over like hundreds of years. Their language and their culture had been taken away from them. And, you know, a lot of the Native American people also struggle with like alcohol and drugs. But a lot of that is because of the disconnection that happens, because of what happens to people in society over generations. And a lot of people in Glasgow like have these sort of roots. You go back a couple of generations, you see that maybe they were like farming people in islands or they were in the Highlands. But the really sad thing is a lot of these people don't actually know that that's what's going on. They just suffer like through life like this, but they don't know that connection. We're not taught that connection. Some of us like find out that connection. It's like something that happens and we find out later on what's happened, but it's like we're still collectively finding out what's happened and trying to put things back together in some way.
Thank you so much. Do you have like a question that I wouldn't have asked?
No.
Thank you, guys.
It's crazy because the same story
It's the same.
everywhere.
It's just, and it's the same in. It's the same in Faroe Islands. It's just crazy. I don't know why. I think it's really something about control and people just panicking because they can't control what you're saying, what you're sharing. They can't control your culture, and so that to make them like be sure of their power, they need you to be like the less independent possible and the less self-thinking possible. And so I really think that it's just that, like every time it's just like people just like panicking and trying to put like on wood. I don't know how you say that. You do that so that there is no asperity. There is no
no creases, just flattening, smoothing.
You just flatten everything so that you can be sure that nothing will go out of the frame. And it's crazy how it's always like.
And I believe a lot that the cutting the roots like never harms a lot.
Yeah,
I think it does the opposite.
It's exactly what you said.
Yeah, it builds the violence and it builds
and alcoholism.
But then what they say is, the people in Glasgow, there's a problem with them, but they don't understand what the problem is, and then they just say, they're just bad people or something.
Yeah,
it just makes it worse.
Like Glasgow is this, or Glaswegians are that, and
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know. Say thank you in Gaelic.
Sad thing is, I don't know either.
So you need to learn that.
I need to learn.
We don't say in.
In Britain language.
So maybe it's the same. We don't really have word to say.
It's been built, but there is not a thank you, which is like in the very beginning of Britain language, because people just do their duty. So it was the same.
And thank you for those questions. It made me as emotional as the music.